Okay, Brian Wang.
Yes,
We have had quite a week, quite a week. I would
yes.
say that neither one of us called this week.
No, we did call this week. I,
Well,
I called it.
you didn't call this week.
I didn't call it this week. No,
No.
no, no. But
Oh,
I said we were going to get, the 10%. And I also said 450. And I've said before that would pretty much by end of January, we're going to get to 450. So
right.
I said that and I posted that up. You sent that other video. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So, yeah. So the 10% extra bump, that was the part that I think that you got 100% like on the nose.
Yeah.
And so I just did a video with Larry last night, and we kind of went through a list of 10 things that might have contributed to it, in addition to just this, I don't know, what would you call it? A Trump bump or a new position for Elon in the eyes of the world, so to speak,
Right.
type of bump. But there's a lot of other things going on. I mean, there's got to be a short squeeze. There's got to be some of these institutions that are going to be jumping in that are currently under the indexing levels that they need to be.
Yeah. So I think it's a Trump rally, not a bump. I think it's a
Okay.
Trump rally.
Rally. Okay.
I think it's going to go for a couple months into the end of the year, and then we'll see if it carries through to the inauguration, and at what point there could be pullbacks. It can be pullback, but my like another person who's very confident with that is Tom Lee of Fundstrat. Tom Lee's talking about another 5% into the end of the year,
Right.
and if you have that, then even if Tesla was kind of going with the regular pack, the fact that they would have the beta, double beta, then you can
Well,
get 10% from that. So that's, from this point would be what, another $33, something like that.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could be looking at 360, 350, 360 by the end of the year, just based on Tom Lee's analysis.
Right, right. Yes, that's on an overall
Right.
continuing Trump rally. But it could even go more than that. Like it doesn't have to be five, it could be 10. The rally, we're just estimating at this point how strong the rally effect is. And also you can also start overdoing things, not overdoing, but the rally could get over exuberant. You
Right.
said FOMO, fear of missing out.
Right.
There's a lot of fear of missing out for next year where if the markets are good, then there's $6 trillion sitting on the sidelines in money markets and cash that will get less and less return as interest rates drop. So,
Right, right. And then, of course, a lot of people are also talking about the difference between the bond rates, the long bonds, and the stock market. And if those long bonds do start to drop, which they at least gave us some beginnings of today in yield, if the yield starts to drop, then that will make that consideration better for stocks as those interest rates come down. So
mhm.
your beginning point of your analysis is kind of similar to that by Lee, that we would be looking, that a lot of what we've just seen is just the overall Trump rally,
Mhm.
because people are exuberant, enthused, excited about the future. But this, of course, rally over the last week was a blip compared to the amount that Tesla went up. So
Right,
that was
right,
way, way more than the beta.
right. So that was because Elon is ground zero
Right,
of the Trump focus on the market and technology and all that kind of stuff.
right,
For him to have discuss for 5 minutes of his acceptance speech, 20-minute acceptance speech, 5 minutes, 25% was saying, "Oh, I love Elon. He's so great. Love his companies, love SpaceX doing the catching of the rocket." So that was, obviously a tight relationship, right?
right. Well,
And then with the photo,
how about he invites Zelensky? He invites him to be on the phone call with Zelensky today. That's just amazing.
right, right. So the there was a negative suppressing effect for a long time because of many regulatory things being slowed down for Tesla.
Right,
Like the time it is taken to get all the Tesla insurance for each state, still not done. I
right,
think we're at I don't know, like 40 states or something like that, some number, right? So there's still 10 more states to go, and that could get resolved more quickly if you have federal support, especially federal support where Trump would say, I want this to happen. I don't specifically have specific control
Right,
over this issue,
right,
but if you don't do what I want, I will take away the money I do control from you.
right.
Your choice.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be said in so many words.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that there's all this networking that takes place and all this undercurrent and behind the scenes kinds of things that go on all of this. I mean, the biggest problem with the insurance, not that I care about the insurance, but the biggest problem with the insurance is the importance of the insurance lobby in every single state. I mean, these people have a lot of power, and the last thing they want is for an Elon Musk company to come in and disrupt them.
Right.
So it's amazing that they've gotten as many states as they have, probably because lawsuits would have been flying if they hadn't, followed the law with
Right.
how those decisions are made. All right, so then, of course, we have quite a few catalysts coming along as
Right.
well. So
Right.
how much of your now? So okay, let's talk about you have $1,000 estimate.
Target for the second half, even it could go higher, but $1,000 that I think could be reached as early as middle of next year.
Oh, middle of next year. Okay,
Right.
and higher
But then it doesn't have to. Like I think definitely
by
in
the
terms
end.
of like the fundamentals of an increase in earnings to justify that,
Mhm.
that should be in place by the end of next year
Okay, to
in
justify
terms of
the
run rate.
1,000, and you and I are only off by $300. And if we hit 700, I will still be happy.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
So, okay. So, $1,000 by the end of the year. Now, how much of that would you say would have happened anyway, even if Elon Musk was not now like the second most powerful man on earth?
Well, movement now could still have been suppressed. Like they could have done a show me the earnings thing,
Right,
right? They could have said, okay, until you double earnings, I will not double the stock. So right now we have a 50% movement and there has not been the earnings increase. What
right,
has occurred in Q3 was margins are getting almost back to 20%. They were at 19.3%. You can discuss the quality of the margins. And also there was a statement that the car growth will be back.
right,
There will be a 30% car growth. So for the last 2 years, last year and this year, virtually no growth, stuck at 1.8 million. And the margins got as low as like 14%,
right,
right? So that was down from 30%. So at the all-time high, we had like, 30% margins on cars, nothing on energy. And we were at what, like 1 million cars or something like that at the all-time high point.
right,
So we had fewer cars, and then we're gonna have one more year of car growth to 1.8 million. And then the margins started squeezing down. China had sales issues and all this kind of stuff. So that was, the wilderness where we got as low, a meltdown as low as 100.
right.
And then um, now I think this is like a melt up. I view this as a melt up. So because when we went down to 100, everyone's freaking out. But the fundamentals around the stock didn't deteriorate to that point. And no one like,
Right.
oh, we've totally crashed through things. They were anticipating more problems than we actually
Mhm,
experienced.
mhm.
So it was overdone. So people would say,
Overshot. Yeah.
yeah, who would say, oh, how can Tesla have a melt up? Well, you can have a melt up, you can melt down. It's the
Right.
kind of stock it is.
Yeah. So we could see a tremendous. So when I've been doing this analysis with others, not you, of course, because you always agree with me. I'm kidding.
Mm.
But when I've been doing the analysis with others, I've said that the all-time high 412, 414, whatever it was,
407, yeah, yeah,
whatever. I
yeah.
don't know why everybody has a different number on that. All of our memory is off. But anyway, I saw somebody today, I think said 412. But anyway, whatever it was around.
Interday, probably 412. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it might have been interday. So that while I was trying to give most of that to the anticipation that robotaxis were weeks or months away, certainly no more than a year, and that was where the real exuberance was coming from. Other people said, Randy, the stock market was out over its skis at that point. The risk on was huge. And everything that was anything related to tech and whatever was just going crazy. And so a lot of it had to do with that. Oh, plus they had just been added to the
S&P 500.
right. So all of that, I'll give you all of that, but it was still over 400 and it was way less than half the company. And we had no idea there was even going to be an Optimus.
Right.
So to me, getting back to 400 would seem to be like a walk in the park. And I've stated we should be at 800 or more. You're saying 1,000 by the end of next year. So I don't think that it's unreasonable if the market maintains this exuberance that
Right.
we be back to those numbers.
Right. So, they also like to say that the market likes to be forward looking,
Yes.
right? But they develop a lot of myopia when it's you have a tough market. So
Right.
then it's like, okay, then it's always show me, show me, show me. So that low PE versus high PE, the sentiment swing.
Right.
Okay, bad sentiment. Okay, we're way down. Everything has to be shown. Until you show it, I don't move it at all, right?
Right.
I don't move the share price. But if sentiment's good, if I look at a year on Tesla, it's fantastic, right? If you looked at a year for real, you could see, okay, energy is happening. The Shanghai Megapack factory, twice the size of Lathrop. Lathrop just got to 10,000, made its 10,000 Megapack. They're
Mhm.
at 40 gigawatt hour per year run rate. It could go higher, we don't know.
Right.
And then a factory twice the size will be done in December in
Right.
China. And the first line will be producing 20 gigawatt hours per year.
Mhm.
Again, we don't know exactly how fast it ramps up, but things can ramp up down very fast in China. So
Right.
then 4 lines, you could be at triple the energy production rate, which already has 30% margin
Mhm.
with a smaller amount. And that could be go from 700 or $800 million of profit per quarter
Right.
on not 12 gigawatt hours that you could have of per quarter production. So you could get to 12 gigawatt hours just by recognizing everything that's coming out of Lathrop
Right.
and being able to accounting charge it. That could be by itself $1.2 billion of profit per quarter. And then if you triple that, that's $3.6 billion
Right.
per quarter.
Right.
That would be $14 billion. That would be what, 50% more than the $9 billion that we made this year,
Right.
right? And
And
that could,
if you're talking about 14 billion per year at 100 PE, you're talking about a 1.4 trillion just in energy.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So you would say that your $1,000 number would be maybe even as much as a third energy.
Right. Actually, I would expect if the energy story fully plays out and gets recognized to the level it could be recognized next year, because Shanghai could be fully ramped because,
Right.
well, it took so long to ramp Lathrop, but China would be taking these megapacks out,
Yeah.
and then, okay, I took 40,000 containers of batteries, put them in, and then got them out, and then deployed them to Tibet and Mongolia, where there's terawatts of solar that needs to have this stuff. And then they install it super quick because China can install stuff super quick,
Right.
connected to the grid. So that revenue could be recognized super fast. And if it does, and then they say another factory, this is ramped in 2025, the revenue is being recognized starting in 2025. I've gotten to that $14 billion run rate. And they announced, hey, we need another factory too. We're going to make
Or
another factory
two or
or two
three.
factories, right? And so then the doubling, tripling of energy per year
Right.
for a few years that Elon said would happen
Right.
suddenly starts happening. Then 100 PE on $14 billion that's growing at 150%
Right.
per year, that would not be a. And then the total addressable energy thing would be far higher because we have AI data centers
Mhm.
that need loads and loads of power.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we need to electrify um, mega charging for semi trucks. So all the car charging, supercharging stuff a semi truck would use 40 times as much energy as a Model Y,
Sure.
right? So each one of those would do that. So then if you actually make that large number, that's going to be needing a lot of megapacks, a
Yeah,
lot of.
no, I think we've talked on this show a few times about the TAM on megapacks, and it's Elon has described it as unlimited or almost unlimited, and I think we've proven that over and over and over again. That
Mhm.
I had one lady on the show about a year ago who was an expert in the area, and she said, "Look, the number one use right now is just to go into existing facilities in the regular grid to balance out the loads that you
Mhm.
make money just doing that. And some of the stuff in Australia, that's exactly what it's been doing. It's just load balancing.
Right,
It has nothing to do with solar or wind or new data centers or anything, or filling up trucks with energy. It's just balancing the load in existing facilities. Then you've got the peaker plants, which is a whole nother story. There's thousands of peaker plants that need to be replaced. So I don't think the TAM is going to be an issue at all. I think I'm beginning to believe that they built the first one. It was kind of kind of their lab. Then Shanghai became the first built to order.
Mhm.
I really believe once they're ramping Shanghai, they're going to start cookie cuttering this thing like crazy. Because
Right,
why wouldn't they?
right. And the other thing is that it's not just a freight container full of batteries.
Right.
There's electronics in it, and there's also software.
Yes.
The software and electronics that Tesla has is the differentiator
Mhm.
of their megapacks versus a BYD megapack or someone else's megapack where
Right.
you're shoving the batteries. That
Right.
there's a lot of um, technological demands on these things. Like I need to switch power in a millisecond. I need to be able to auto bid and deliver the power. Um, someplace I need to handle fluctuations in power. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there that is not just I have a bunch of batteries and I'm plugging them in.
Right. Right. Okay. So let's say just for fun that 25% of your $1,000, maybe it's a third, but we'll call it 25% is mega packs. But of course, if they do announce a couple more factories, that would increase pretty rapidly. Then what? 50% is cars, just regular bending and shipping metal.
I would say probably about 25 to 35%. It depends upon the Model 2.5,
Okay.
how much that is. You know, if that comes in and they ramp it up properly for next year, it
Mhm.
could be as much as, 35, 40% of
Okay.
it if that's going in. And also if there's a surge, if we are separating a surge in demand related to robotaxi and FSD in car units,
Right.
then that would be bigger. If you say a surge in demand for vehicles from the result of success of FSD and robotaxi, that if you group that together, then the FSD robotaxi story is better if you're depending on how you're assigning the categories.
Yeah, of course, I think we talked about this last week on Wednesday night when we did this. I believe that we're going to see a surge in demand just from what happened this week.
Mm.
That lots and lots of people, and I finally have Larry on my side on that one as well. So
Mhm.
last night you can watch it. Last night, Larry, he said it that he
Mhm.
agrees now that all of this publicity on Elon Musk and the fact that he's going to be in the public eye all the time now, and more than he has been in the past and it's on the Republican side, all of that is going to impact not only sales of the product, not only sales of Model Ys, Model 3s, Cybertrucks, et cetera, but also sales of the stock that is going to bring in new potential buyers, new retail buyers into the community.
Right.
So we could be looking at that being 30, like you say, 35, 40%, maybe half for next year. Then the rest, I'm assuming only the little tiny leftover piece of 15 or 20% would be, first of all, I guess there's other, but then the big thing would be robotaxi. So uh,
Mhm.
we're
I,
both
I view that the robotaxi part because of double counting that the boost in car sales, but also that if you have the FSD approved in China and you
right,
get to um, human beyond human driving by the middle of the year, like they're talking about, which I
right,
think is very predictable now. People
right.
say, "Oh, we don't believe them," but they've been very um, accurate in predictions for the last 2 months. We say we're going to do something in this month, and then
Right.
they do.
Right.
So, and
Now
it's not just
we did have a milestone today in China. We had maybe it was yesterday, the milestone of passing of Tesla being one of the first companies to pass that software safety protocol.
right, right. So if that comes in, so a lot of the FSD thing is based upon my assumption that those two things happen. Two things happen. FSD approvals in
Right.
China and Europe,
Right.
and other parts of Asia, and then the and be able to sell there,
Right.
and then also the getting to human level by middle of the year.
Are
Human level beyond.
are unsupervised? I mean, is that the
Right. And I'll take that forward. If that story fully takes hold, what happens? So the I'll break down the components of it. So last quarter, they made $347 million from FSD
Mhm.
last quarter, which a lot of it was because all the foundation Cybertrucks, all of them had to have FSD included in that sale, right?
Right.
So 100% of those went. Um, you'll still be selling $80,000 Cybertrucks, but there will be no requirement that they all have
Sure.
FSD. But people who are willing to pay $80,000 instead of $40,000 for a vehicle have a higher propensity to buy FSD,
Of course.
right? Because they have more money to be able to do it, which was seen in the early days of FSD, even when it was far more inferior, in Model S and X sales, where
Sure.
they would have up to 30% of the people who
Right.
bought
Right.
them
Mhm.
would buy, even 50% would buy FSD, even though it wasn't even there. And now it's there and usable right away. So so going from like 12% attachment rate now, because attachments have dropped. They were as low as 8%, but Matt Smith was saying that based on analysis of the 10Q, that it's probably 12%.
Hmm. That's
So
12% in the US or 12% world
US, US,
US. Okay.
yeah,
Right.
not worldwide.
Right.
So then the worldwide part can triple things because suddenly you
Right.
have all of China open up.
Right.
And I think that the China customers will be very eager to do FSD. One, anyone who buy the Tesla in China is among the wealthier people.
Right.
And then two, they can show off and they love the technology.
Yes.
So if it works really, really great, 25%, 50% attachment rates is not impossible, even beyond that
Right.
in China, which if you would go over the past fleet, existing sales, not just new sales, then you're like 2 million existing cars in China that could get those. So that'd be like a million if you had 50%. And then you would have another potentially million cars from the new car sales. So then that would be like if it had 50% attachment rate, you'd be looking at 1.5 million sales um, or subscriptions.
Yeah.
So that would be like, and that happens in the United States and in Europe. Also, the attachment rate increases. Then we could be looking at 6x, 10x, the $347 million from Q3
Right.
at some point, like at the middle of the year, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that could be, if it was 6x, that would be um,
Couple billion
two,
dollars more.
2.1, $2.1 billion, $2.1
Right.
billion per quarter
Right.
of
Just
revenue.
on FSD.
Right.
So then you've got on top of that, you've got robotaxi, but then, and you know, and I think we're all to some degree, you know, pulling a number out of the air because we don't know how many people will put their cars out. We don't know how fast it can be, you know, spun out into the real world. We don't know how many people will start using it early on. We also don't know what the traffic will bear, so to speak, with regard to what people will pay. I mean, and we don't even know how much Tesla's going to take, what their percentage is going to be. And then my
So
favorite,
I don't view that as part of my initial
okay,
calculation
for the
for
found,
what's happening next year
okay,
because the um, Waymo paying per ride part
right,
of it,
mhm,
the ARK Invest story where everyone
right,
pays because it's so
right,
cheap and all that kind of stuff, that is not what I expect to see happening next year.
okay,
What I see happening next year is not that you can simply from the usage, is that um, BYD, Apollo Go, the Chinese car makers and the robotaxi companies, including Didi, which is the Uber
mhm,
of China, right?
mhm,
Didi uses 20 million cars, right? So if they say we're and China's has had a national policy of supporting robotaxis, one of their pillars of their technology, say we want robotaxi,
Okay. Yeah.
right? The reason that the Premier Li, number two after Xi Jinping, said, okay, we're coming, we want Tesla to come in, we're very interested in it, and wanted to adopt it for China. People say, well, you're going to put the domestic robotaxi companies out of business. The domestic robotaxi companies buy their chips from NVIDIA. They buy their software from NVIDIA. They buy their cameras from other places. And then they buy their cars, the robotaxi companies, they buy their cars from like Toyota or Volvo or whoever else, or Geely or someone else.
Right.
So someone else is making their cars. If those cars do not work as robotaxi, which they don't, other than hyper supervised with LiDAR and blah blah blah, then if the Tesla solution actually works as vision only and can scale, where I can get 1 million of them, right? Then they can buy 1 million that don't work. They could wait 4 years to make them work, or 10 years to make them work, and spend $10 million. Or you can say, screw that, I'm going to buy the ones that work.
Right.
And then the only place you can get 1 million of those that work would be from Tesla.
Right.
It'd be Model 3, Model Y probably, and then maybe toward the end of the year, some 2.5 vehicles or whatever they are. And then next year you have cyber cars. So if they say, I'm eager to do it, I want to put them into the 800 Chinese cities I'm approved in, where I put in like 1,000 each one, then I need 8 million of them. I want cars as soon as possible because Apollo Go wanted to expand from 20 cities and like a couple thousand vehicles to like 5,000, 10,000 vehicles, and then become profitable next year. This is with the more expensive vehicles and other stuff. So if they say I can get even more profitable, I can get to 100 cities, 200 cities, and whatever at larger scale. I see that as being the choice. And again, that would be purchases of a Tesla car and then 100% purchase of FSD from them. And then Tesla could choose to fine tune the pricing based upon revenue share.
Sure. All right. So you don't see, but you certainly see a rollout of robotaxis next year in the United States, right?
Right. California and Texas, because we already had it operating supervised with their employees. And
so basically, when you start adding all that up, and you haven't even talked about Optimus yet, which nobody ever does, and you haven't mentioned the semi-truck yet, which I know is maybe your favorite product of all. And the potential there is just massive because they'll have 100% FSD at some point. What happens if we do get a reveal of Optimus with pricing, on the website, it's ready to go. Does that, I mean, Larry Goldberg just said he thought that was easily worth $100 immediately. What do you think?
Yeah. Depending on when it happens, like if you're already up at $1,000 by mid-year, the fact that more and more good news would be happening. Like if every week you're signing robotaxi licensing deals, and then you start showing real useful use out of Tesla bot, then the Tesla as a AI robotics company perception shifts over. The value of that is if you're just a car company, even though a fantastic car company, then they say, oh, you should be at 50 PE at the best, right? Kind of that thing. But then a fully realized electronics, robotics, AI company, now you're at 80 PE. If you're a really great one, then maybe you're at 100, 120, right? So the PE expansion of you tell us you're AI robotics company, and then you show us working robotaxis by large volumes, huge sales, and by Tesla bot that's going to transform manufacturing and stuff like that. Even if it's the Tesla bot isn't at scale, it's only at a few thousand, something like that. Then the story of the PE story of you are an electronics company, you are or whatever that should have 100 PE, that even though you haven't moved the revenue or the profit yet, the fact that you're fully justifying a double PE because you are that other kind of company.
Right. Okay. So then the story is at the end of the day, which you got accolades from Boomer Mama, you got accolades. I think, did AJ say something? No, it was Warren Redlick.
Mhm.
And Warren Redlick's never been bullish. He's never been optimistic about price points. Uh, then you've got Larry Goldberg sent you a note and said he thought it was good analysis. So everybody's kind of chiming in and saying that this looks like a good analysis to them. So I think we could say that there's a growing group of rather, clever people that think $700 to $1,000 is not crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So just to go there really crazy, if everything comes in perfect, it probably won't,
No,
right?
no.
But if everything did, right? Where it's like the full robotaxi I'm talking about, licensing deals up, coming out every week, everyone doing all that stuff. The licensing deals are the huge thing because even though there's no revenue this year, what drove the stock up from like 140 to 299 last time was Ford, GM, all those others
Yeah.
saying, okay, we're licensing, right? So now if you license FSD, that means Tesla's making not just FSD and robotaxi software for the other companies.
Right.
And they'll have to use the AI4, AI5 chip
Right.
and whatever other future generation chips
Right.
there are. They'll have to use the cameras and electronic systems. They have to use the Tesla operating system
Mhm.
that runs this thing. Because Tesla's not going to, I'm not going to, this works on the top of my operating system. It has to be in there, right? So basically that means it's Tesla inside every vehicle, right? So it becomes like Intel back in the day, where it's like it's in every computer. It's automatic. Every computer has that. Every computer that back then, Intel would make, I don't know, like, 30% of the price of the product,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So that would happen for potentially what, 80 million cars per year
Yeah.
that they would say, okay, in my spreadsheet, I have to, now that everyone said they're going to do this, in 5 years, in 2030, I don't have a question of, can Tesla make 20 million vehicles? They're going to make the insides and the profit on 100% of all the vehicles, 80 million vehicles per year.
Okay, well then what about our co-author, Lars Strandritter, last week? He says, no, it's not just going to be that. It's going to be the ultimate product, the product that Elon says is really the product. It's the entire factory. So if General Motors needs a robo taxi car, or even a car that has a steering wheel but is a full self-driving, Tesla will just build the factory and spit out the product for them.
Right. So that was something that I said last time in one of our, I think 2 or 3 videos ago, where I
Okay,
said that Tesla making the unbox process
right.
and running Tesla bots in it,
In it.
which requires all the technology that Tesla has in terms of like 48-volt architecture,
Right.
all those other things. Then Ford has already said, we cannot match your cost cutting.
Right.
You went beyond us. We can never do that. They were hoping to stay close and only have 8% margin versus whatever margin that Tesla had, but stay close. But that was close based upon not the current technology
Right.
and not the unboxed process. When it goes unboxed, and just like a reusable rocket, China could kind of keep up with Tesla on the SpaceX side, SpaceX reusing the first stage.
Right.
You know, they said, okay, we'll just launch more, it'll be cheaper. They got 40 launches, 50 launches, and then SpaceX gets up to 140 or 100 launches per year. So they were kind of like not totally
Yeah,
embarrassed,
that's right.
right? But when you get to full reusability, and then you have 10,000 launches, a million launches, and then if you don't have reusability, you cannot keep up. You no matter how much you push it,
Can't even
you're still
compete.
at 60, right? So Ford will be left in the dust, and then it's like, okay, well, we cannot copy your technology because we're not good enough. It involves all this software and everything that you got that we don't, right?
Right.
So then they bend the knee, and then not only did they buy that other stuff, then it's like make the factory, make the skateboard, we'll put in car seats and some other design on top, and then that's all we'll do,
Or
right?
we'll just put the badge on and
The
ship it out.
badge on, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
right.
All right, listen, I know you have to run, but I after everybody and their third cousin was was talking about you today. I know we talked, for those of you who are going, Randy, didn't you guys just talk about this the other day? Yes, we did. But since then, things have developed. We've had, this big run up in the stock and an awful lot of interest in what Elon is doing, which I think will just become bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you want to see more about that, here's a card right here to go back and see what Larry and I talked about last night. The 10 ways that Elon's decision to get into politics might be the biggest thing that ever happened to Tesla stock.
Right.
So that's, if you want to look at that from yesterday. Brian, thanks for bringing us back up to date. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.